Hello, everyone, and we are live. This is Terra Vance from Neuroclassic. I am the CEO, founder of Neuroclassic, and welcome. It'll be a few minutes while people start joining the stream, so um, the recording will be available afterwards, and we welcome everyone. To our stream. So I'm Tara. I'm a parent. I was a former school teacher of 14 years, taught English, and then I was a trauma counselor, and now I spend all of my time doing things with Neuroclassic and the broader community. And today I hope that we have a lot of participation from our audience, and I look forward to your questions and your responses. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can interact with us in the chat and we will be able to see your questions and comments. But if you're on LinkedIn, we will not be able to see your comments. Everyone can access the YouTube stream, so if you're on LinkedIn and you want to interact, you might head over to YouTube if you don't use Facebook. Okay, I'm going to pass this off to our co-host and then our guest of honor, Tiffany Hammond. But we will start with Jude.
Hi, I'm Jude Afolake Olubodun. I am the Chief Decolonizing Officer for Neuroclastic, and I'm starting to work as a coach at Autism Personal Coach, helping other autistic teens and adults and neurodivergent people overall reach their goals. I do a lot of like local grassroots organizing. Founded this organization called the Chattanooga Trans Liberation Collective, and we do a lot of work. We recently did a name change clinic, and that was really nice. I finally got to get my own name changed. You can find me on social media, but I'm not really active on there. For my well-being, I like to stay away. But if you do find me on there, feel free to follow me. I'm like the Midnight Gospel on Instagram, I believe, and it's my name on Facebook. And please don't go on my Twitter. So yeah, I think that's about it for me. I'm excited to talk with everyone today. I will pass it to Tiffany.
I do. Okay. Tiffany. I am I suck at intros. Mom, autistic. My boys are just like me, little miniature versions of me. I'm the voice behind Fidgets and Fries. I love to write. I love to challenge people, have them see things in a way they probably haven't seen things before. I wrote a book. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't do good with intros. I help also consult with different organizations and brands on how to be more inclusive and more diverse and more accessible. And half of them I can't even talk about yet because I signed those NDA things. But once they come out, I'll be super excited to talk about those. And that's it. I suck at intros. I'll probably think about something later on.
That was great. That was great. I also really hope Gillette, I know you can't confirm or deny, but I hope Gillette got off there. I've been trying so hard because that just needs to be a thing. The reason that I bring that up is Tiffany had advertised the first razor that was specifically made to shave someone else's face and or to assist someone else in shaving. And products like that, because 87% of autistic people also have motor disability, motor planning disability. So things like shaving can be really hard. And, historically, people have thought that if you can't button a shirt, you also probably can't read and write and do math. And they've assumed that people's abilities are just flat across the board, and they've misunderstood people with severe motor planning disability who might really it might be dangerous for them to shave themselves. And so someone like Tiffany being an ambassador for razors like that would also get into the public conversation at a broader social level to presume competence about people with motor planning disabilities. So that's a match made in heaven, and I keep pushing that. So Gillette, if you're listening out there, somebody tag them in the on social media. Tell them to come join the stream. Anyway, so now let's introduce Mari.
Tiffany, I'm right there with you. I suck at intros. My name's Madi. I am an autistic behavior analyst. Dun, dun, dun. I'm also the co-founder of the LEAP Institute, and our focus is to address the disparity of practitioners in the field of ABA and other fields as well, not just ABA, but really looking at addressing that problem. And I am also the CEO and clinical director of the Lighthouse Learning Center. And it is a model that I have been working on for many, many years. I'm a former special ed teacher and also the student rights advisor for Neuroclastic. So I do a lot of supporting parents and students and knowing special ed law, federal law, state law, all of that fun stuff. And so, yeah, that's me.
And I want to, because I know that some people in our audience might be gasping right now that Neuroclassic. Let me tell you before I say anything, we do not just work with Mari, we love and trust Mari. So you can, no apologies whatsoever. When we deal with human rights situations, especially when we have students who are in situations where school is traumatizing them in a severe way every day, and we are worried about their safety. And I need everyone to understand that one of our board members' children was unalived by his teachers at school in a restraint. So we take this extremely seriously. So when we go into these meetings, when we do these advocacy cases, we need someone who speaks the language and understands the system with deep nuance and who can use those systemic structures to the child's advantage and not the system's advantage. And a lot of times that needs to be a BCBA because that is the language that they are using and that is the framework that they understand. And we work to get people out of very toxic, dangerous group home and institutionalized settings sometimes, and we have to rely on the supports that have the systemic and institutional connections, language, privilege, the literal ability. Sometimes the only person who has the capacity to go into these places is going to be a BCBA. They're the only person who's authorized to do this work. And so when someone is a ward of the state, especially, and that means that the government has rights to control this person's destiny, we have to work within these systems. And so, and I need to say that because that has a lot of relevance to the conversations that we're having today. We'll probably talk about some heavy things today, and hopefully some light things too. But I need everyone to understand that we have to have nuance, and I want to pivot some of that to back to Tiffany before we get into talking about the book. Let's talk a little bit about the main thing that we see from your platform every day and in almost every post that you write. Not only do you practice what you preach by actually putting the nuance into your post, but you also specifically say, I am adding nuance to this post. Nuance is really important to you. Can you tell us a little bit about why and why that seems to be the undercurrent of all of your posts?
Because I got tired of being overlooked. Like that was like the main reason I even started sharing online in the first place. Those 2 or 3 years ago, it was I was doing a lot of my work offline, and I was helping all these families. I was staying up with them all night, helping them with IEPs, even sitting in with them on their ARD meetings. Well, I don't know if it's ARD meetings in every other state, but Texas. Um, I'm in Austin like every other month, sleeping on the floor so I can talk to somebody, to tell them other people's challenges and struggles and issues and things that they were having. And then when we were going through it, when we were having a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles and obstacles and things thrown at us, a lot of being mistreated and I reached out for help, and there was no one there. Like it was just like I was by myself, like on this like island. And I realized then that the struggles and the things that we faced weren't the same as the people who I was fighting for. And I wanted them to see that. I wanted them to get that. I wanted them to understand that. And they weren't getting it. It was a lot of, I would sit in some of these meetings, like these, used to be in like these groups, and there were literally parents in there that were like upset because another parent wanted to start a Black autism group. And it was just like, it just like erupted into like this big debate. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching these people go back and forth, and none of them were Black. It was like I'm watching people argue for a Black autism group and then argue against it, and none of the people in the conversation were Black. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what? And so it was just like it just stacked up. It stacked up, and then I was like, oh my gosh. And then I just started sharing online and started venting. And I get hit hard when I first started sharing online. It was the stuff that I share now. I still get hit hard on that, but back then, it was hard. I got hit hard. I got labeled an abuser. That was back when I was trying to figure out how to navigate social media, and all I did was share a post about, I think it was like Texas Tribune or something. They were talking about Medicaid was gonna cover ABA. This was like 3 years ago, and I think they only just started doing it now. And I just shared the article, no caption, no nothing, just sharing. I got hit. I got put on a ban list. I got trolled. I got stalked. My family was stalked. My husband, my friends. It was like this big thing. I was called an abuser. My kids weren't even in ABA. I was called an abuser. I was called unfit. That CPS needed to take my kids. People would make fake profiles. They would come on. They would accuse me of being a prostitute, and they would share that around. It was like a really, 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 really difficult time, and that's when I left Facebook. And I was like, I started focusing on Instagram, and because I still needed a place to vent, I needed a place to release all the frustrations and stuff that I was having with trying to advocate in real life and hitting all these walls. And I just kind of like kept at it. I didn't want to stop doing it because it was important for me that people understood that we don't exist within this diagnosis the same. And I wanted to drive that point home. And when I was on Instagram, I didn't see too many that would talk about it outside of a few. And I learned a lot from those few that were talking about it, but I think they got burnt out. And I was big on intersectionality, like talking about it like all the time, like defining it, putting it out, laying it out. And then it started to change for me. I felt like a lot of people, not all of them, but a lot of people that used it didn't really fully understand what it meant. It was like the commodification of intersectionality. It was just used as like something that sounded good, it looked good, and it just drew people in, but they weren't very intersectional in their work, in their content, what they stood for, what, how they behaved. And so I don't hardly ever even use intersectional anymore, like the word. I hardly ever use it now, like in anything. It's not to say that I don't feel that my work is intersectional. I just don't use the term anymore. And I just wanted to keep digging and digging and digging and digging into people and trying to get them to see the whole of who I was. And I did that through stories. When I first started, it was just like, I'm sharing it. This is like, here's a word, here's a definition, this is what it means, and then boom, boom. Like it felt all like academic and like, yeah, that worked. But then I was like, no, I want them to see me. I want them to see us. I want them to connect to who we are as people. And then, if they feel us more on this level, on this like more human level, then they'll be more inclined to care about the things that hurt us just as much as I care about the things that hurt them. So I started telling more stories. I started sharing more of who we are. I started sharing more of my children. I started sharing more of our life and the things that we go through. And then writing it in a way that I hope that people would connect with or see themselves in. And then kind of like remind them that they too are not just one thing. Like they are all these different things. They wear all these different hats. They experience all these different things. And I just felt like a lot of times in these spaces, it's almost as if we forget we're more. Like we forget we're more than just autistic. We're all these other things. And that's kind of what I was trying to drive into people's like, bigger than this, we're more than this. And I wanted them to, I forgot, I lost my train of thought, but that was like my biggest thing was just like trying to get people to see that they were everything, all that they are, that they were everything. And you fight for everything, and you see everybody, and your community is made up of all these individual bodies that come together. It's not, just one type of person within your community. It's all these different people and all these different experiences and all these different stories. And they have all these different challenges and circumstances and everything. And I wanted everyone to remember that and to know that and to see that. And so yeah, I'm like drilling it in, so it like sticks, like, and you just like, every day say it again, 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 and it's like sticks. It's like, and you hope it sticks, and that's all you think about. It's like nuance, 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 like all the time, and you hope it sticks. And I'm hoping it's working. I like, little by little, I see the stuff like changing, because like 2 years ago would have been bad, but like I didn't stop 2 years ago. I just kind of kept going, just let my skin get a little thicker and stuff. And now, nothing really bothers me. Not really. I just keep going.
I want to say from where I sit, which is not a place that a lot of people have experienced, just here at Neuroclassic, because we are a very widely known org, and we've been doing this a lot of years. I want to say that I believe that your advocacy has done more to change things than like whole teams of tons of advocates. I have, and the work that you have done, and honestly the abuse that you've taken because of it, has made what we do here so much easier. And I'll say why. I would get attacked. Other people, I'm banned from almost every group, Facebook group related to autism that's run by other autistic people. A lot of time, there are all these rumors, like you said, rumors about you. I was a not even really autistic. I was a BCBA who was just here to like break the autistic community down. People, oh yeah, I'm banned from almost every group. You don't see me in the groups, and that's why. There's so many rumors about me, and I don't think that I'm unique to this. I think anyone who tried to challenge any of the dominant narrative, and this is not even unique to autistic culture, this is all cultures where you have people who are saying, no one wants to accept things we don't love. No one wants that. But we have to. We have to survive. So we have to have the hard conversations. And just basically from trying to have those, it's dangerous to people. And what's happened to Tiffany has happened to me. Do you think, Jude, Mari, that's happened to you too, hasn't it?
Definitely, like, especially when I'm on other posts of like bigger pages like Neuroclastic, like definitely just having that as it gets more attention, like you get those attacks, and like my brain cannot handle that. I I can't take that pressure and stress. Like social media feels very dehumanizing. Like especially like in a lot of like the advocacy spaces, which you feel that you would get more grace in space and understanding and get that nuance. Um, but it's like almost immediate attack. It's a lot of people who, in understanding, especially my background in like restorative justice and teaching boundaries and teaching consent and teaching that these are a lot of things we did not grow up with, and that harm people. It still doesn't take away that it's harmful. Like honestly, it took me a while to understand. Like though I'm understanding while they're hurting me, it still doesn't mean that they're not hurting me. And like even in understanding like they need help, that this isn't being considered, it's like I'm still being harmed. I'm still mentally suffering. I'm still have that anxiety and that hypervigilance for the need to protect myself and explain myself, and trying to show where I'm coming from, trying to, because I'm not just advocating for myself, advocating for my children, advocating for my community, but at the same time, especially when you're in these spaces, that's a heavy weight to bear. Where like, and to expect somebody to be the mouthpiece for a whole community. And that weight is really heavy, and it really like becomes like burdensome, like weighs you, like cracks your shell, cracks like your mind, per se. And like an understanding where we're all trying to come from a place of like doing no harm, of trying to help. A lot of us aren't trauma informed. A lot of us in the neurodivergent community, like we like have alexithymia. We don't know how to explain our feelings. We a lot of times like have things like PTSD, and like you don't even necessarily know why you're triggered, and actually digging into it would be harmful. But it becomes, and with all of these people getting together who have been hurt, who you can't deny have been hurt by this system, it becomes like mobs that they may not even realize it. They'll have people come from their pages and it's like, come call this person out. And what really gets me in this is like, so what is your goal exactly in calling people out? Do you want them to change? Do you want them to die? Do you want them to like go away and never exist anymore? Because if you want them to change, just a bunch of people calling them the scum of the earth probably is not going to do it. Especially if you're not giving them that time to just like, oh, okay, I understand what I've done wrong. But how am I supposed to come back and change and try to model good behavior, model change behavior, and undo or make amends for the harm that I've caused and move forward for that? Because a lot of times it doesn't leave in that mentality, in that mob mentality, it doesn't really leave room for that at all. And so a lot of times it just feels like punishment rather than like you really want this person. And so it's like, if you want this person to truly just go away, a lot of the times that just, and you are saying they're being harmful, you are saying that this person is doing like is violent. So if you don't see them, if they're not on these platforms anymore, that just leaves room for the people that you don't know, the people that you aren't in community with, the people that are most vulnerable around them. So they can still be causing harm, you just don't see it. And so and that leaves, like, that happens to a lot of us, honestly, that when like they push somebody out, they excommunicate them, but it doesn't mean they stop existing. So if they actually are causing this violence and harm, it's just open for somebody else, but at least you and your people are okay. And like the rest of us don't deserve it either. So when y'all have the opportunity to really show what accountability actually looks like, if that's what you're trying to do, it's definitely not the way to go about it. And I understand, because a lot of people know, like, they're not educated in this. We don't learn this in schools. They don't teach us boundaries in schools. They don't really teach us how actually not to do harm in schools. A lot of the things that's instilled in us as healthy are actually quite harmful. And deconstructing that and unlearning that is a lifelong journey. Learning that things that you've been doing for your children, trying to break those generational curses, that generational trauma, and understanding like some of the stuff that feels like common sense, and then going deeper and deeper. It's like, oh wow, this is harmful too. And then also like the whole other level of, there's certain things that marginalized people have to do that is harm to teach them how to survive. Rather than it's like, do you do this that I know that is hurting you, or do you do this and I have to worry about you being dead? And so when we go online and we talk about these things, that nuance pretty much is never there, and we're deprived of our humanity. And that's why, at least for me, I'm taking a break. It's been really good mentally. But even like on Twitter right now, like a lot of autistic and gentle parenting experts are on a mass like right-wing list to attack them. And like one of them is like Supernova Mama, and she was even saying, it's like, what I do, like all I talk about is gentle parenting and just being herself and her children, and they put her on a list for that. And that's from the community that we expect that from. So when this happens within our own advocacy communities, it's a lot. It's painful. It's hard to move forward. Still am, but it's definitely not contributing to like the capacity to be able to do so. So I definitely commend y'all like for like still pushing forward and still being like accessible and still being out there. I also understand like it's like a lot of our source of income. It's basically my source of income too. So that also adds another layer to these attacks, to when you just get on people and treat them like they're a head and face behind the screen rather than a person, that they're just an avatar instead of a whole human being with a family, with feelings, who's going through just trying to survive. So yeah,
Yeah, I want to say, if you didn't know Jude before, you know enough now to know that Jude is just the most wonderful human. And I don't know, maybe Jude and I, after Jude started working with Neuroclassic, we were so excited about getting into some projects and things. And maybe like, what, 2 weeks later, someone posted a video, like a hit video on YouTube. And let me tell you, those lists that Jude was talking about, I'm on lists like that. I've been on a literal assassination list before. Yeah, so that's disconcerting. And people will send you pictures of your own house to let you know that they know where you live. I've had my power cut off to my house. So, like, this is not like physically someone outside turning the power off from outside. And you know, they're probably trying to lure you out. And you think, am I, I'm hurting my family. Should I quit? But that's what they really want. And all I'm doing is just, talking about basic human rights. I don't have the privilege to make any kind of massive change like that. But it's like, here we are creating these beautiful, helpful resources that can only interject good into the world. And then this video comes out that's just full of lies about Neuroclassic and me and things, trying to, of all things, make us seem like we are homophobic, which, that anybody who's ever known us, almost all of us are queer, and that's pretty standard in the autistic community. It was ridiculous. If you know us, I'm not going to defend myself because everything that I've ever done has just it's obvious. You just, if you really want to know who we are, just look at us. But it just put us in such shutdown and derailed so much of the excitement, the joy of seeing progress and doing things that actually help people. Because we're volunteers for the most part. We're not doing this for the money. And so it's just, yeah, none of this is an exaggeration. And Mari, you are in a position where oh my goodness, you take abuse from lots of angles. I've seen it. So you want to weigh in here?
Yeah. First, I have to say that I actually came across Tiffany's Instagram like about 3 years ago when she was just starting out and had maybe like a few hundred followers. And I would say that that was probably life saving as an individual that had a late diagnosis, and someone who had been in the world of special education for so many years and getting in trouble for the work and advocacy I was doing in my classroom, since like back in 2004. So, it's not something that I was unfamiliar with coming into, I guess, the social media world. I definitely am really not on Facebook. I don't like to get into groups. I feel like there can be this like hive mentality that occurs really quickly, and so this idea of being able to share your nuanced experiences and your own lived experiences can get shut down really quickly. So I really just stuck to Instagram in just the work that I was doing. But yeah, I mean, I get a lot of pushback from both of my communities, and I tell my husband all the time, like, I don't really fit in either one. I don't know a lot of Mesoamerican native autistic individuals, and we're not a monolith. So that's the first thing I always try to tell people is just because you hear Native American does not mean that we all are the same or have the same experiences or have the same cultural values and beliefs. Like we're unique just like anyone else. So it's been kind of a lonely road in that aspect. And I've been very grateful to have mentors and friends like Tiffany, and Terra, meeting you as well in this journey. But I also get it from the ABA community. I've been very grateful to have opportunities to actually present and be invited to present and talk about the things that I share on my Instagram as far as decolonizing this field and what that really looks like, and the barriers that are still in place that limit even allyship, by neurotypical professionals in the field. And so I've been fortunate to receive invitations to go and speak. But let me just tell you that some of the feedback I get after those conferences, when people get to submit, their opinions of of my workshop or my training, there's professionals that use very unprofessional language and, wish harm to me, wish that my certifications and licensures are revoked. We'll say very unprofessional things. Um, so, it's just something that I knew living in the world of public ed, that this was going to be um, the experience that I was going to have, and from both communities, which is why I'm very careful and very protective of my family and the time that I spend. And I'm grateful that I have my husband, who I really consider like a compass as far as navigating interactions, both with the neurotypical community and the ABA community, and my own peers, because our experiences are so different. And I think that, being able to hold tight to my values. I've always asked myself, like, what is the goal in what I'm doing, in all of the work that I'm sharing, and in the things that I post on Instagram for other professionals. And it's always been about, I'm either working to build something, to create something that is missing, or I'm working to destroy something. And those are opposing values for me personally. I can't say that for anybody else. And so I either am going to wake up in the morning and have behaviors that contribute to the value of destroying, or I can go and work towards building something. And so that's really helped me stay focused on what it is that I'm hoping to do in the field, as we, are starting to get a little bit of stage time to express our concerns, rightfully so. And then, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to make the changes? So yeah, I mean, I'm used to it. But I also am really good about just like shutting it all down. Social media is like an artificial construct, and I have a life and my colleagues and my family that, I can just like close that screen and just be in my life. So kind of holding on to that really helps me to, like Jude was saying, to not fracture, to not let my spirit be broken. But I mean, that's just, I think that's the part of advocacy that people don't recognize. And it is volunteer stuff, like I cannot reconcile advocacy with any kind of profit or monetary income, for me at least. Like I can't get those two to reconcile for me personally. And even in the work that I'm doing here in my little town in West Texas, and running a clinic and a center that is person-centered, that is, human affirming. I haven't paid myself yet. And I'm looking to break this model of what traditional ABA clinics are to begin with, and the greed that drives a lot of this harmful practice. And perpetuation of harmful practices, not just to the learners that are there, but to the staff that are abused and overworked and underappreciated. I mean, it's such a culture that needs to be broken. So yeah, I'm weaving now, Tara, as you can probably tell. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell and my experience.
And there are people, when I don't want to come across as saying the people who are doing these things are bad. They are causing harm, but I used to cause some of this same harm, right? I used to, when I saw someone was a BCBA, they weren't a fully human person to me. They were an abuser. And I wasn't always, I guess the more I've gotten into the on the ground activism with all things autism, I've been an activist for a very long time, but I didn't have as much nuance as I should have had. We started as a blog with just a few friends, and we blew up. And it's been a lot to try and catch up to the level of high profile that we became. So we've had some growing pains and some perception adjustments, but also our community causes harm to each other. Like, we have prevented each other from critical thinking, from having the full picture, from being able to participate in conversations that we need to be a part of, because we get this wall immediately of like a trauma response, right? And so, I could not receive anything that BCBA said before until I started getting really deep into things and seeing, like, online, at least in the places where I was occupying, the worst people were the SLPs. They were far, doing the same exact things that we have a problem with ABA, and then OTs, everyone, educators, coaches, just, we were seeing the same exact problems in every field, but we couldn't talk about any of that. We had to make you and everyone else a good guy or a bad guy, instead of let's all look at these specific harms that we're engaging in. And that's what Tiffany does, saying, let's look at some of this nuance. Let's look at these specific harms, because if I tell you to stop this one thing, you're just walking into another harm and another harm. You don't know how to know what's a good option or a bad option, because we don't talk about how to know what's a good option or a bad option. And it's been so empowering to watch people who follow Tiffany start to have so much more nuance so that they can come to conversations and identify specific harms instead of just saying, everything is abuse and everything is bad or good. It can come and say, these are harms, these are some ways that we can navigate them, here are some questions to ask, and then people are, we're not just turning parents away with, this is good or bad, and that's all, because that gives them no answers. But that's really what we have, as a community, have been conditioned, to use an ABA term. We've been conditioned to do these things. We ABA each other, right, into unhealthy patterns. The world ABAs everyone all the time into unhealthy and healthy patterns because we live in a very traumatic world full of aversives, right? And we respond to them, and a world that's trying to sell us things all the time, and we respond to that. And we need people to say, wait, let's slow down. Let's think about things. Let's stop just responding. Let's break some things down. And that's what Tiffany does. So let's pivot to the book for a second. I'm sure we'll come back to all of this. A Day with No Words. I am in love with this book. Do you have a copy that you can hold up so people can see how beautiful it is? No? Okay. Well, we will post pictures, and Tiffany, just follow Tiffany, Fidgets and Fries. We'll put that in the chat in a second here. Follow Tiffany on social media. But A Day with No Words. I have been trying to write a review for this for so long, and I keep crying every time and falling apart because every parent needs this book to be in every school and every other parent's hands, especially parents of non-autistic children. And I want to talk about the playground scene. But first, without giving any spoilers, can I pivot to you, Tiffany, and you tell us a little bit about the playground scene that's not too much of a spoiler?
Yeah, the playground. Sorry, I was hearing myself echo, and I'm like, the playground scene, that was like a combination of a bunch of different playground scenes that we've had over the course of my children's lives. And there's never a time that we've went to a playground where someone didn't make a comment that hurt us or did something that hurt us. And it got so bad we just started to avoid going to playgrounds when there were people, or if we go and we see there's a lot of people there, we just don't get out of the car. We just wait until they go. But this scene was about a time when Aiden just is himself, and he's just enjoying life and having fun. And it was like the perfect day where it was there was trees he could hug, and the grass was a little bit wet, and he loves to put his feet in wet grass and spin all over the place. And he was just being him, playing on the playground, because that's what you do on playgrounds, is you play. And there was a group of people who felt scared by Aiden and what he was doing, and judging him. And I felt like that, how Kate drew it, because I didn't even have any interaction with Kate on that particular page at all. And the way that she drew it was just amazing, because it completely fit like so many of those situations, like a group of people just standing there getting together, because that happens a lot. It wasn't like it was like an isolated person who wants to make a comment about my son on the playground. It was always this, they all kind of like get together, they group together, they stand near each other, and then they gossip about my son. And to have her like depicted that way was like amazing, because that's literally what happens. Like if it's more than one person and they have an issue with my son, it's like that's the glue that binds them together, the issue they have with my son, and they pull together and they
Every
stand
time.
together. Yeah, and they talk about, my son or us, and I guess it feels stronger in groups to do it. And that's how Kate drew it. I don't know if this situation was familiar to her, as she has a child who's also autistic, or has autism. I don't know her child's identifiers, but same diagnosis. And I don't know if she pulled, I feel like she pulled a lot from, her experience as well. But that specific thing where she drew them all grouped together, where some of the where they were all looking in his direction, and he's just minding his business, and he's just spinning and playing, and one child is pointing. One parent has this like scowl on her face, and uh and the other one is hiding behind their mom. And that's like literally what happens. They're either angry, they're staring, they're pointing, the little child is hiding. And a lot of times it's not even always the little children, which I honestly can kind of understand. They're little. They're trying to figure out the world and stuff, and but it's the ones that's like 9 and 10, and so it's just like how to. And I'm sitting, the mom character sitting on the bench watching, looking on, like angry and stuff. That is literally how those situations happen. It's not all the time. Sometimes I'm sitting on the bench and I'm just crying, like it's not always like I'm just mad at them, like angry, and I have it. But like sometimes I'm just literally like I'm crying or I'm about to. Um, but that's that scene and that part that was important for me to include, because I wanted to highlight a time where he's just minding his business and he was a problem for people. Um, he was just enjoying himself, and he was an issue for people that were around him. I also wanted to highlight how the mom feels in those situations, and to have all those people like judging your child and you, and making those comments, just like seeing how she would feel in that situation. And then also adding that other layer of not speaking, not being able to tell them with your mouth that you are being hurtful and you're being mean and you're being, so like all of that had to have, like, just playing on it. And it's just like you can't stop these days. You have to go all in on it. You have to feel everything as close as possible to what you feel like your child feels. Like I won't completely understand what Aiden's going through, but I always commit myself to these days, and I never drop it. Even when I feel like I want to stop it, I want to cut the iPad off, and I want to throw every single cuss word I have within and like throw it up at. But no, you sit in with that, and you feel a bit of your child there when they're angry, and they can't get it out. I'm so angry. And then the part that happened after the playground scene where she's sitting with the iPad and all the words are flying off of the um the iPad where she's typing and her fingers are blurred and everything. She's putting all of like the effort that she has left that she can try and do into that iPad. And that is exactly what it feels like. You're so angry, you're shaking, you're about to cry, your emotions are all over the place, and you're trying to steady yourself to write on this iPad. And in the back of my head, like I said, this happens to me a lot, especially on these days that I choose to do this, is that in the back of your head, you're hoping that they stay long enough for you to finish that sentence so you can show them what is going on. Like you hope they don't leave. So I'm just trying to like figure it out. It's trying to type it all, just put it in there and give it to them. And that was like I had to show all of that and then show how she had to calm herself, but she had to take deep breaths to breathe, to try to go within herself, find a happy place, find a space that she could go to, and I do that. And I didn't include this in the book because I only had 600 words, but I often have these little these items of either like small bear, small magnet, something small that I can carry with me any time of that week, and they're my little energy transfer things that I use to like envision that is holding all those strong emotions that I can't really let go of. So it's like maybe one day it's a pen or whatever. And so I'm like, if I'm just super angry, I imagine all that anger going into that pen so I don't explode. And I let it carry it, as much as I feel it can carry. And so then I do that. I breathe. Sometimes I count. Sometimes I think of a funny scene in a show, and I'm doing all of that while I'm breathing and I let it out, and then I'm able to like type on it. And Kate definitely like captured like all of that in there, all of that in that little bit. I was so worried. Because this is my first book and it's a children's picture book. I was so worried because I was like, I only have 600 words and I don't even like, oh, now how are we going to draw it? Because a lot of this book had to be carried by the art. And she did like the most amazing job ever. And I'm like super grateful for her, like in every way possible. Like she has all the pictures she referenced, and she's read a lot of like our stuff, and she's seen Aiden, and has a better picture of who he is and who we are, and what he likes and he doesn't like, how his iPad looks, everything was just like
She nailed it.
nailed it. Like
And
I nailed it. I like couldn't even ask for a better like I couldn't. Like
I keep putting this up. Meg Raby is another autistic author who writes children's books, and there is a scene in her first one, My Brother Otto, in a library that is very similar. That's got the kids pointing and the adults just have the scornful look, and that scene too. That has been so many times. And it's not just how hard it is to see how people just band together against your baby, your sweet, beautiful, guileless child who has no antipathy or ill feelings towards anyone, who's just existing. And you've done so much work to make them be okay with themselves, right? To help them just know who they are and be in the world and not hurt other people, but just do what they need to do. And so, I lost my entire like friend circle, a gentle parent group locally, right? In one of these playground instances, my child is a baby sitting on the ground, not speaking because that, and still is a complicated communicator. We'll say that. But non-speaking, but would just sit there and say the alphabet forward and backwards. That's where she was at the time, and her motor planning was a bit behind, still is, and that's fine. So's mine. I'm 42. Doesn't get any better from here. But so she didn't run around a lot on the playground equipment because she would fall a lot, right? So she was just careful, and of course, smart kid, right? But she would sit there and she would line up the mulch around the benches where the parents were instead of running around with the kids, and say her ABCs forwards and backwards. Nothing's wrong with that. That's fine. I had no problem. But people saw her saying the alphabet. She didn't say words, just would repeat the alphabet forward and backward. I didn't teach her that. She just did it. And they would get together and they would start looking. And then finally somebody had the guts to say it out loud, what they were thinking. They were like, parents are trying to prepare their kids for standardized tests starting as soon as they're toddlers, and they don't play. They don't let their kids play and just learn how to be a kid. And it became like just so subtle. Nobody was directly saying, you are trying to teach your kid the alphabet and backwards, because somehow that was worse. And saying, parents helicopter their kids so they don't feel free to just go run and play. And it was so obvious that it was me, and everyone just kept getting more and more bold. And so I had to make that decision, like, am I going to confront these people about how they've all contributed to, like, shutting my baby out for just being herself? Do I have to disclose her diagnosis? Am I going to lose my stuff and yell and swear at them? What's going to happen here? And then I have no one left. I don't ever want to be around these people again. And so every single time you go out, something like that happens. Just recently my daughter had this parakeet that she really loved. And when you're an autistic person, you can really love your special items like they're alive, And this one actually, it chirped and it moved and it was soft and she could pet it. And it was really special to her. And some kid on the playground just grabs it and throws it at the ground and shatters it out, takes it out of her hand and does that. And the parent doesn't even address the child for doing that to my child. And it's like, yes, kids can be jerks and do things like that, but this happens all the time for no reason. My child is doing nothing to provoke anyone, just existing while different. And so that book, the way the mother handled it was so beautiful, and it is so empowering, because we need other people to read your book to see everyone who reads that book will love your child, the child in the book, and will love the mother and will want to see them both defended. And that will make them think about their own behavior when they see something they don't understand. They will want to be on the side of that child who's a little bit different, who's doing nothing wrong, that they might have judged before. They might, parents were judging me because they thought that I'm sitting here. They use the word flashcards, like I'm giving my toddler or 1.5-year-old flashcards to like not let them learn to play and be free, but to try and prepare them for school way too early. So if they knew, I think, that she was autistic, I don't know if they knew or had any idea about that or not, but I shouldn't have to tell them. they should presume in good faith that my child is not miserable because she's not running around playing the same way other people are. My child's doing what she needs to do and deserves to be able to play outside and do what she wants and needs. Like all children, right? But I don't think anybody maliciously intended to be a bad person, but they do things that are harmful all the time, and that's just normal. Jude, have you experienced any kind of similar things, or Mari?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just expected, I guess, at this point. I mean, since a child, and I don't know if, you know, there's a difference we know now, like for girls experiencing and our manifestation of autism. And I don't know if, like, as a child, I was very hyper aware that, people were, looking at me and treating me differently. I remember my time on the playground, like I was at the far end, at the very edge of the playground, like looking at the ants, or just like wandering. Like that was I enjoyed doing that. Like it was a break from being in the presence of so many people in a classroom that I didn't understand and that I really didn't have much desire to want to interact with. And now, as a mom to three kids who are neurodivergent, autistic, um, I- that experience, like, Tara, you sharing your experience about the little bird, I got a call from my youngest son, which is interesting too. In all three of my children's experiences, my two older children could be white passing. They're very fair skinned. And so their experience in public school has been very different from my youngest, who looks just like me, has long hair, which already kind of puts a target on his back because he is a young Native boy with long hair. Um, but I remember getting a call not too long ago from the principal that he had hit some kids, and he got, we picked him up and we took him home because it was already apparent that they had cast judgment and decided that he was in the wrong. And so when we got home, we asked, kind of what really had gone on. And he hadn't wanted his friends to get in trouble. So he took the brunt of the punishment. And what had happened was he was creating a little scene in the dirt with rocks. And one of his friends had come over and he said, "I just want space right now. I don't want anybody to mess with me. I just want to play with my rocks." And the friend did not respect that and went and basically stomped through his little made, landscape, whatever he had created with the rocks. And so my son went over to the teacher and said, "Can I sit by you so that I can be left alone?" And the teacher had told him, "Well, sometimes people can't give you space and you're just going to have to be okay with it." So he went back to his little spot in the dirt and tried to rebuild his little rock. And the friend came back over, brought another friend over, and they did the same thing. And so my son got up and punched both of them. And he was the one that ended up, receiving the consequence for that. And for me, I think it just solidifies, the 41 years of living and experience of how um, the rules don't apply in certain situations with certain people of certain skin color and certain demographics and certain neurotypes. And so I don't know. I guess I don't know if I'm at the point where you just kind of resign yourself to the fact that this is just the experience my child is going to have. Um, but as far as like mom groups and friendships, yeah, I've never really had friendships, especially with females. I think that's been a really interesting experience for me, just growing up and always wanting to help, and then being like turned on without even realizing, and then being told like, you just think you're so much better, and you do all of these things and you think that makes you better than us. And I'm like, wow, I just wanted to help you because you asked, or you asked for the truth and I gave you the truth, and it didn't end up being what you really wanted. Like, okay, that's not the truth that you wanted. So I mean, just those experiences have just been the norm. So, I mean, I think the hardest part is when you are a parent and an autistic parent to autistic or neurodivergent children, there is no community. There really is. And so it makes it so much harder when we, and I know Tiffany can probably attest to this, when you're hearing all of these opinions and all of this kind of like vitriol coming at you about what you do with your children. And it's from individuals that don't even have children and are like telling us that we're doing all of this wrong. And it's like, there's no book, like nobody's telling me how to, interact with these other neurotypical moms and, how to tell them that what they did to my child is not acceptable. And, like there's nothing on how we can support our children when we are still struggling to navigate these overwhelming places like a park or a play date or public school, walking through the hallways. Like we don't have that. And so I think it's almost more painful to get that from our own autistic community than it is from the neurotypical individuals that do this kind of like gawking at you and like, snickering under their breath. And it's like, okay, I know you're going to do that. Like I'm used to it. But when I have my own community that comes and says like, you're doing that with your kid, like, wow, like you suck. You're a terrible parent. I'm like, first of all, I need you to experience parenthood to know how absolutely freaking hard it is. And that's with probably a child that does not have significant needs. Parenting is hard, and there is no right and wrong. There is no black and white. And there's just so many layers to it that I don't know. I think that's still something that I struggle with in this whole arena of like, yeah, I know what to expect. I know the arrows coming from the neurotypical community and how they're going to treat me and my children. I think the hardest part is the arrows in the back, from a community that supposedly understands, but yet, doesn't offer me any resources on how I am supposed to support my child's sensory needs and their unique personality when I don't have those supports for myself. So I don't know. I think it's just it's a complicated situation.
100%. Jude has to leave soon too. So, got a prior engagement coming up soon, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'll make this my last little bit. I will say I haven't actually experienced it that much. I'd say because, though before diagnosis, it did happen a little bit, like mainly with like other kids, like teasing my child because they're so emotional about things, would be like quick to cry or didn't understand. Like my child really needs a environment where like it's clean, and so they moved desks, and the new one was really dusty, and so I could tell they were rushing through their work at school, and this was before we started homeschooling. And so I asked them why, and it took them about a couple of weeks to really process and tell me. And it was because they moved to a new desk and it was dirty. And so being able to tell them, communicate that, really helped. But being in school really didn't leave room for somebody who needs that kind of time for communication. And it was really overwhelming for my child, and really seeing them like on playgrounds and not understanding why other kids didn't want to play with them. But I'd say around the time I really understood like all of our diagnoses, like I wasn't really in moms groups. It was during the pandemic, and I'd already sort of learned to avoid them from prior years, when I was really on Facebook. So honestly, it hasn't happened to me a lot, and I'm really grateful for that. I will say though, it has happened for another child that I watch. That's pretty much like when she's with me, she's mine. And honestly, she's very noticeably neurodivergent to me and more like outgoing. And it is difficult because like we'll go to the park and she'll go pick up other people's babies because um she wants to help with the baby, help them learn how to walk, or she'll go with strangers who say that it's like, oh, these are my stranger friends. So she'll go to get in the car with them, or she really won't understand. Um, or she'll like tell the other kids like this is how we're playing, or like she won't really understand, especially why older kids don't want to play with her, why younger kids are a little bit like she's very full of life, but she doesn't get those social cues. And I think that's fair. Like nobody's taught their children to communicate with other children in that way. So I get why it's off-putting, but it's also heartbreaking to watch that. So a lot of the times we don't go to those places because I just can't keep watching her heart being broken like every single day, and she doesn't understand why. And I can only tell her so much because it's like the next day it's still the same thing. And I get that. She's 5. I've been watching her since she was 4. And so it's really hard to watch that baby just go through heartbreak every single day because she acts like who she is. Like she's most of the things, it's not even like harmful to somebody else. It's just autism and weird, and they view that as wrong. They view that as, instead of this is an opportunity maybe to talk to someone's child about something like that. And I also get it's weird and it's like talking to somebody else's kid, but it's like you have enough initiative to move your child away. Why not have like just talk kindly to a 5-year-old rather than like instilling that I don't know, that isolation so early on. So yeah. But I do have to head out. I have a prior engagement. I really enjoyed talking and being here. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have fun. Thank you so much, Jude. Always love your wisdom.
Good to see you again, Jude.
Okay. Oh my goodness. I need everyone to buy this book. Neuroclassic almost never endorses anything, right? Like, I get at least 30 books every month or two in the mail from people wanting me to review them. I get contacts, emails every day. Somebody wants me to review their program or whatever and share it from our page. And we almost never do. Not because they're not great, but because when we say this is a thing that matters and that you should totally go out and get this is important, you'll hear us. Like there's so many people making products surrounding autism and creating things, and that's not to say that other things aren't great, but when we want to save our times of saying, if you're looking to us to recommend some things and you have limited resources, these are the things that we think really, really matters so much. And you need to get this book because I need, as a parent, selfishly, for me, not Neuroclassic, not anybody else in the world, for me, as a parent, I need everybody to read this book, to love the child and the mother in this book, to see that they deserve to be defended. They do not deserve to be ostracized. And that's not the whole book. That's just one scene. But this one means a lot to me because, this weekend I took my child to something she was so excited but nervous about because she has performance anxiety. Everyone who knows who I am would imagine that my child is very unmasked and that my child is proud to be who she is. But there's nothing I can do that will compensate for it. There's nothing I can teach her that's going to be enough for her to not feel the difference between herself and other kids. She wants friends just like every kid, and she gets performance anxiety because she is trying to perform like she is not autistic. She doesn't know that's what she's doing. But that's what my 6-year-old is doing. And oh my God, this weekend we went to a thing and it was fine for most kids. But it was an event where it was Girl Scouts. I did not sign my child up. That was my husband's doing. But my child loved it, so we were going to keep going with it. And nothing was specifically wrong with this event, but every 15 minutes or so they switched to a different table and they did a little craft or something. And they were all fine motor tasks. If my child gets dirty, like Jude was talking about with one of her children, if my child gets dirty and gets gross things on her hands, that's a big dysregulating thing. So the first thing, they're decorating cookies with icing, and it's chocolate. And, my child has poor motor coordination, going to end up with a chocolate beard and chocolate all over her hands because that's poor motor planning. And then the second table is coloring on an ornament, a wooden ornament. So all these children are making these, little Christmas trees, rainbows. Everyone has clear pictures. And my child's looks like a close-up picture of a pine tree branch because it's literally just a bunch of green lines that are chaos. It's scribbles, but that's my child's motor planning right now. But so all these girls are showing each other, and you can see my child is kind of covering hers with her hand. And then we get to the next one. They use scissors, no left-handed scissors. Guess what? Autistic kids, much more likely to be left-handed. No left-handed scissors here. Already got motor planning disability and now has to cut things. And as soon as my child messed up, somebody goes, oh, no. You did this wrong. Don't mess up again. So my child is like, every single thing is not built for her. And the first thing they did was give 200 little girls a jingle bell necklace. So that's like jingle hell for me and my child. We can't understand the word anybody's saying because auditory processing issues, right? So it's like that at every station. There's something fine motor. There's something, my child can't hear what people are saying, so can't follow the directions. And is basically trying to audition like I'm a normal kid that's doing good and making everyone proud. The world does this to our kids. I need people to read this book. Please buy this book, put it in every classroom. Neuroclassic is going to soon start taking up donations. We'll have a special fund where we can supply for people who can't, for financial reasons, can't afford a copy, that we will ship to you. So you will be able to purchase one for someone else, because that is a good investment. So that's my... Tiffany, you have anything else? We never set an end time because we just kind of go until we feel like getting off. And so we can leave whenever you want or we can keep talking. I'm good.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm good. I don't know. I mean, yeah, buy the book. Or buy the book for yourself or your school near you, or a therapy center, or just you give it as a gift to anyone you see out there. Or I just hope that the book helps those like Aiden be more seen and heard and loved and accepted, and it's like in a super awesome call to action. It costs you nothing to participate in this, and the results can be like monumental, so it's, I'm not gonna lie and say it's easy to do. We had to ease into it. We started at home, and then only for like a few hours, and then we slowly took it out into the community and started to do it there for a few hours a day, and then we bump it up to like full days, and it's not easy. So I'm not gonna tell you it's easy, because if you live where we live, where like it's like everyone kind of knows you, and one day you were speaking and the next day you're not, and the type of comments you get then, or the judgments you get then, or the impatience that people have when but we stick with it, because like for every few people that don't get it, there's several that do, and they tell you that, and they ask you about what you're doing, or um what's this program on your iPad, or um things like that. I think the one thing that's always like fascinating to me is that we're often like alone where we live and where we're at, and even in school, like my it's not uncommon for my son to be the only one of him in the entire school. But every time we go out and someone does ask about his iPad, or the app that he uses, or what it's used for, almost every single time they always know somebody who is like Aiden, or they might work with someone that's like Aiden, or um or they work in a school that has students like Aiden. So this is something that I hope everyone who needs it gets their hands on it, and that it sparks a lot of conversations and people doing their own um days like these. Like I just got like a few messages like the last couple of days and stuff, where there have been some teachers and stuff who are actually doing little um programs around it, and they're doing days with no words as well, and that's like so awesome. That stuff, it makes me like super happy, and all the feels and stuff, and I hope that it catches on, and um so that other children like Aiden don't have to have the same um school experience, or childhood experience that he had. And yeah, and buy the book.
And I want to say, as a community thing, neuroclassic, we're big on we can't do anything without a community, right? That's the only power. We don't have any money, y'all. We don't have enough money to pay one person's salary. So, uh, right now we have gotten to the point where we can pay people for individual things. And we hope to eventually be able to pay a lot more people for a lot more things. But we're growing at the speed our executive functioning allows us, and but we need community, because that is where our only power is, and our big, but it's not only, that is a huge thing, right? We need to make this a bestseller. And that means we need to take all of our algorithms and all vitriol that we put into, I mean, not vitriol, but all the energy and the togetherness that we put into, like, when Sia made a movie that people were offended by the non speaking representation of. Okay, so now we have non speaking representation that we need, that we love. And even if Tiffany is not non speaking, Tiffany is in community with non speakers. This book has been reviewed by non speakers. Tiffany is a parent of a non speaking child. Well, not a child, but a teen. But so, if you were, can you imagine if we got the community together to do something like this? Because we can get the community together sometimes to destroy Judge Rotenberg Center or to complain. And I'm not saying complain as in has no merit, just whining, but to make valid complaints about offensive things, offensive representation. Can we get together? Because now somebody in our community has created something amazing. Can we get together and put as much energy into building this up? And that's another reason Neuroclassic doesn't spend as much effort on everything. We're putting our chips in one basket, right? We have a book ready to come out with a non-speaking character who's the book is illustrated, written by, and co-authored by autistic people, and y'all, I can't wait until everyone knows who Trevor Bird is. He's a non-speaking teen who is amazing in every way and just tough as nails. And I can't wait until everyone gets this book. But we're not publishing. We're holding off because we're putting all our chips in. We're not taking anything away because this is strategic. We need you all to help us. We want this on the bestseller list because the more something gets some traction, gets in those algorithms, gets some numbers, because that's what the world looks at, what other people are doing. That's why autistic people never get anywhere, because we're not what other people are doing, right? But we can get together, we can all make this the thing other people are doing, because that's not the deep commitment that we want to see from the world, that they just do it because it's a popular thing and everyone's telling them to do it. But they'll learn after the fact. They'll invest in it because it's that beautiful. So yeah, help us out. Your mic's muted. There you go.
I wasn't saying anything. I was just like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, you should say something. But yeah, I agree. Like, please, 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 please buy my book and share it with your family and your friends and your schools and every place that has people. That's where you share it with people that read books. So that means everywhere. Like everywhere. I was at McDonald's and I was pushing my book. Yeah, got a couple of sales out of that. And so like everywhere I'm at, like just saying, hey, I got a book. This is me. And I just I pull it up on my phone and stuff. Do you want to buy it? They're like, do you want to get these stamps? I'm telling them everywhere I go. Like I wrote a book. Like, hey, you want to buy it? So just I hope that it helps. I hope it helps open doors for more autistic authors, and that would be so amazing and stuff. I know I got Gregory's book, and that one's super awesome, and it taught me so much about Aiden and myself, and I want that hopefully they'll be like, hey, look at all these autistic authors, and is selling. So maybe they can have more autistic authors as well, and illustrators, and just hope it opens more doors for this community to share their work and their talent with the whole world, because there's a lot of talent here. It gets overlooked a lot, and I hope that you know that with this book, and with Megan and Jules' book, and with my son walking in on me, and like, yeah, but why my book? Are you okay? Are you okay? What did I do? I don't know. They can hear you. You want to say hi? They heard you say no, not really, too. Do you want to let down the people? Yeah.
That no just makes me love him more.
My gosh. Like, no, not really. Like, okay. Like, okay. But yeah, like, please buy the book. Please share the book. Please, yeah, that, and I hope it's a bestseller. It's a bestseller in my heart. Like, it's my heart. It's a bestseller. But I hope it's bestseller. But I'm super happy that people bought it, because that's like amazing. Like, someone like just messaged me yesterday, and they're like, I bought it. And they're like all the way in Australia. I'm like, yeah, my book is going to Australia. They're like, I was like, I'm happy. Like, look at that. And it's going to Canada, and it's going to to the UK, and I think someone from Germany bought it too. I'm gonna be in Germany. God,
What?
I know, right? And so, like, traveling the world without actually going. So, like, please buy it, and please share it with anyone that you can. And our publisher has like a buy a book, gift a book thing going on.
Yeah, we'll make a post about that. I've asked Beck's Life, who's been sharing the links, to send those all in one message, so I can just copy and paste and make a post about that. But in the meantime, because this book comes out, is it early May?
Yeah, and on the 9th. So.
Okay. May 9th. So you have some time between now and then. And, we will also make a way for you to apply for a copy if you, if financially you can't get a copy between now and then. But also, in the meantime, we need you to, because we're just banking right now on this is going to just hit the world and take the world by storm. And then people are going to be talking about apraxia and motor disinhibition and communication rights. And we need you to learn about these things between now and then, so you're ready to have these conversations. And we need you to, we share things. Neuroclastic is not a few people. Neuroclastic is a lot of people. And we're a publication. And so not everyone, we have a small leadership team, but we have a bunch of people we work very closely with. We have advisors who are non-speaking. We have non-speakers on the board. We share things with you all the time to help you learn about apraxia. And these things are created often by non-speakers or in tandem with non-speakers and illustrators. Like, we spend most of our resources, and that gets the least amount of interaction of anything we put out. And Tiffany, you talk about this a lot. Mari, you talk about it. It's really hard to get people invested in understanding and learning about and sharing, because non-speaker issues do not relate to everyone. And they do to a degree, but when the difference is people think that you are like a 2-year-old when you're an adult. That's huge because you can't control your body. And a lot of the things the autistic community puts out are really harmful to non-speakers because they don't take into account. And you can't even know how to identify that harm until you learn about it. So that's the other thing that we need you to do in the meantime. Like, we will share with you. We try not to just flood you with a million things. We try to share with you like really quality things. And I always say follow Nigh Functioning Autism too. That's Tiffany Joseph, who shares really quality curated content from non-speakers, AAC users, is also a part-time AAC user, works on the ground with non-speakers to help them get the supports they need so that they can communicate by spelling. And that's amazing. That's our favorite thing here. So yeah, follow and please help us to educate our community so that Tiffany does not have to work so hard, and so that non-speakers do not have to work so hard, and so that we don't have to start over educating people about the most basic things every conversation. We need like a lot of people to do this at once so that we're not always starting at the beginning with conversations like, no, not all behavior is communication. All behavior is not communication. No non-speaker will tell you that their behaviors are all communication. So we need to stop saying things like that. We need to stop saying, look at these causes of aggression, and naming off a list of things that in no way includes motor disinhibition. Like, if you're looking for the reason for some of these things, hey, maybe they just had a moment where they were having something that was like a seizure and they couldn't help it. They weren't thinking that this was not planned. This behavior did not mean anything at all. You can't find the source and root of this behavior because there was no logical reason. They didn't want to do those things. Their body acted without their brain's consent. And so when they tell us that every day, they're writing it saying, please listen, like, you have to stop analyzing all these behaviors and you have to start making sure people have communication so that you stop believing that they want to do these things when they're trying to tell you their bodies are not cooperating with their brains. And that's why typing and speaking, the mouth is, that takes like multiple parts of the brain to coordinate to make speech happen, at least 6. And if there's something there that's disconnected or rerouted or underconnected, speech might not happen, right? So, and that can be totally different for every person who's non-speaking or unreliably speaking. So we got to learn about these things, right? So we can help our community members and be in community with each other. So, okay, end of soapbox. So sorry for that. Tiffany, Marty, you have anything to add to that? I told myself I wasn't going to do it. Don't do it, Tara. I was saying don't do it in the middle of doing it, and I still did the thing.
I think just in all of this, my encouragement, I've tried not to like tell people like this is what you should do, but my encouragement and what I make sure I do every single day is just remember there's no perfect protagonist in this story. I think sometimes with this whole neurodiversity movement, and there has to be like the perfect kind of savior that's going to come and save this. Like, it's going to be a bunch of us that are not perfect. Tara, you talked about in the beginning of your work that you didn't have that level of nuance. Like, all of us are still learning on a daily basis, like about ourselves, about our own people, about our own communities, the different communities that we're part of. And there's no perfect protagonist in this story. And I think that we are going to hinder good, significant progress and refuse to reach across the table if we have this mentality that it has to be this like non-tainted, kind of purest individual that has never, made a mistake or thought something wrong or believed a certain way, that you cannot be part of helping to change and make things better. Yes, we're all under construction. I love that. And then also being able to get to a point, and this is something I'm sharing just as an indigenous way of being, an indigenous culture, is learning to accept others without the requirement of having to understand or even agree with the individual and their choices and their life and their experiences. And I think people get stuck in this binary that to accept someone means you also agree. And that's not the case. I can accept without having to require you to explain to me so that I can understand. That should not be a requirement. I should be able to just accept you as who you are, as the needs that you have, and you knowing what you need better than I could ever. And getting to that point, I think, will be such a great step in us being able to come together to tackle the challenges that are in front of all of us, and the challenges that affect our most marginalized, and that is our non-speaking Black children and adults who are disabled, who are autistic, and making sure that in this they are not left behind, because otherwise this is all again centering that dominant group, and we all have to fight hard to make sure that the work that we're doing impacts the most marginalized, the most forgotten, the most spoken over group.
Love you for all of that. Okay, Tiffany, you have some closing thoughts? You want to get on your soapbox?
No. I've been on my soapbox for the past 2 weeks. I was taking a break and sitting in chairs and listening to everybody else down there and say all the things they gotta say. I'm just watching and learning and trying to be a better person and a better advocate and a better person, human, all of that. And I agree with everything. Doctor, I like saying that now. Oh my gosh.
I love you, friend.
I agree with everything that Dr. Mari said. I think that was like one of the main reasons why I chose to do a book that focused on my son, because I wanted to highlight his experience and also in doing so highlight all others who experience life as he does, because they are often not thought of, or talked over or dismissed or any of that. And I know the monumental effort that non-speakers go through just to communicate their thoughts and their needs, and especially in an online space, to educate others and to teach others. And I decided that I wanted to use the talents and the gifts and the privileges that I have to amplify their story in any way that I can. And so I do that outside of this book. I listen to the things that they say, they write, they type, and I just absorb all of that, and then I try and take it and put it into a story of ours, see if there's like some similarities and some things, and then I try to put that experience out there, just try to highlight who they are, and what it is that they need, and what it is that they require, And I just want people to see them. I want people to see Aiden. I want people to know that they exist and they understand. They have a lot to offer. They are just amazing humans, and they are deserving of, all the good things. And I just want to find any way that I can to highlight them in any way that I can, and try to, you know, help them, especially in all the ways that they've helped me, and in all the ways that Aiden has made me a better person. And I just want to honor them in some kind of way. And then this was my way of honoring them and honoring my son. And I hope they like it. I was worried about reviews from everybody, but I was worried about reviews from the non-speakers I sent it to. It was like my biggest thing. I was like freaking shaking. I was like, oh God, I hope they like it. 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 Like over and over and over again, just like nervous. And so far they've loved it. And I just hope that everyone who reads it loves it as well. And y'all think of the non-speakers, that's out there. They are out there, even though we feel alone, like it's almost just us all the time wherever we go. When my son was in school, it was just him. At the therapy centers, it was just him. It was it was just like everywhere we go, it just feels like it's just him. But they are out there. They're there. They might be doing what we did for several years, which was hide. We hid a lot, and I just want them to know that those individuals and their families know that I see them, and I love them, and I care for them, and I just want to try and do the best that I can in the time that I have on this earth, to show them how much that I love them and care for them, and will fight for them in the best way that I can. And this book is one of those ways. So, but yeah, so that's it. That's all I have. I don't have anything else.
Every autistic kid needs somebody like you fighting for them.
Aw.
And that should be our goal as autistic advocates. You're amazing. Thank you for everything you do, because everything you do makes the world easier for my child. So, yeah. I mean, and to what Marty, doctor. I would make my husband call me Dr. Honey. Like, he couldn't just say honey. It'd have to be. Like, I planned on getting it, but life happened. And now there's no point. So I'm not going to ever have that. But if I did, it would be Dr. Honey. Anyway. Yeah, what?
No, that wouldn't fly in my house. that doctor is something I use to almost negate the prejudice against the autism. Like, I do have a right to speak. So every day of that torture, which is a whole other story of academia, was just reminding myself that this is how I can walk through the front doors of that and blow through that place and start.
That's why I feel like so angry when people don't see what you have had to go through to get there. And like, it's not like you are there because this is a fun way to live your life. you are there taking massive amounts of pain and abuse, and you are alone. You're standing up there with that title with multiple intersections, and I cannot do a ton of things that I do without you being in that position. And a few, but not not very many people. I need you to have those credentials because I can't get them myself. And knowing what you've gone through, to be able to come to, for me to call and say, hey, I got a non-speaker, a friend who's non-speaking child's being abused, and there's an IEP meeting in 15 minutes. Can you come? And you say, let me clear my schedule. Like, what you went through to be able to do that, like, I don't know other people who I can call and ask to do that. And I need people to see the nuance, because if you didn't exist and do what you do, then there would be so many people out there who might not even be alive right now. Like, your work is really important, and I need people to have more nuance to see that me and you and Tiffany and other people who are saying, like, see the nuance, are not saying, like, accept things that are terrible about society. No, we're saying that sometimes we need to be able to save some lives. We need to be able to, like, handle emergencies, and somebody has to be at every step in between me and that person for me to be able to help them and for you to be able to help them. And we need to be able to find those people who will help us, and we need to help the people who are trying to get more access to privilege so that they can do even more and help them get there. The people who are on our side, who listen, who know the nuance. And so that's what Tiffany says every day. Listen to that, because when we start telling you specific examples, like, there's a deaf BCBA who works with deaf blind clients. There's no autistic advocate I know who would be able to help deaf. I can't help a deaf blind client, but I would definitely call her first before anybody else. If I ended up with a situation where I needed somebody, that's the person I know in this world who would be the most. And that's an autistic and deaf person who's got access to helping these people, because BCBAs are the ones who get the funding to help the people who can't get help any other way. And it's not like, people are saying, oh, some people can only afford these, they can't afford other services, and that's all they have. And if you're using it for childcare, no, this is not childcare. This is, sometimes we have a person who definitely needs some help, because this world is not going to help a deaf-blind autistic person. And there is no amount of, you have to be a billionaire to have the money to be choosy. So when you have a person like that who's out there not just helping people, but also teaching other people how to do it the right way, so that you're not causing harm and that you're listening to their autonomy and stuff, you lift that one person up, doesn't matter what credentials they have. And if that's the only services that those parents can get 40 hours a week of, or 20 hours, or 10, or 3, or whatever, like, it's not as simple. We're glad people are learning, but it's still not as simple. And when you get like 100 of these cases a week that you learn about, it changes you. You can't just stop saying ABA is abuse anymore, because it's like, it's way too complicated for that. So we need everybody to just pay attention to all the specific things so that we can be in these conversations, because you all have important things to say and people need to learn from you. But, like, we have to be speaking the same languages to be. Okay, that was my second soapbox. I'm done. Anybody else have anything? Because now we're right at 2 hours. Okay, buy this book. We'll make some posts following up with this, and you can still share this post. It'll be recorded and available on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube for the rest of forever. And love you, Tiffany. Love you, Marty. Love you, audience. And thank you for, like, our community, our audience is great. The rest of the community can be like a minefield, a killing field, but you all are amazing. And thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love you both.
Love you both.
So honored to be always in this black box with you.
That's right, doctor.